Okay, this video is Mystery Progressive Part 2, which is the requirements needed in the Hydra server to make the Mystery Progressive work. So let's start with the files that are needed. We're going to go to Computer, Disk C, iNet pub directory. Okay, so you see some files here. Files that are required are going to be a new Cerberus exe, and the version that's going to be required is version 9.0. The version for Cerberus is version 9.0. Okay, that's the first thing that's required. The next thing that's required is a file called con.txt. And we're going to get into what that file is in a little while. The next thing that's required, which is already in Hydra, is the DLL for the hasp key. And then there's a new H-port monitor that's required. New H-port monitor is 840, version 840 H-port monitor. And then Mystery Progressive exe is the actual app that communicates with the media controller. And then one other file is called mysql data.dll. Okay, so if you don't have these files, they should be on a folder in a folder on the desktop of the media controller. So look for a folder on the desktop of the media controller, and you should find these files. And there's also some other stuff there as well. We'll get to that also. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take the new files and we're going to copy the ones that are not here. Context, MySQL data, go ahead and copy those over. Cerberus and H-port monitor, we're going to rename the current files with the extension OLD, and then bring the new files over into Hydra in the iNet pub directory. Okay, so that's pretty much everything we need here in this directory. Now, before we leave, there's one thing that we're going to talk about, and that's this context. Okay, so if you right click on this and you hit edit, it's going to bring up a notepad window with the text that's in that file. One thing that you have to make sure of is that these 3 lines are the 3 databases that Mystery Progressive needs to communicate with. So the first line and the second line are for the Hydra database and for the player panel database, and then the third is for the MySQL database, which resides in the media controller. So if you remember earlier, in the media controller we did an ipconfig command, and we got the IP address for the media controller. So in my particular case, my IP address for the media controller is 192.168.1.122. So you're going to have to change this number to whatever your actual IP address is for your media controller. The other thing you have to do is whatever the name of your computer is, in my case it's just Hydra, you have to make sure that the name Hydra is in the first two lines. So server equals Hydra dash PC. So it's always the name of the computer dash PC. So if the name of your computer, for example, is test, then you would change these two lines and you would say test dash PC. And then test dash PC, and then you would change the IP address. Now, once you make a change to the IP address, you can't save it directly to inetpub. You have to save it to, I use documents. Documents is a good place. So it's still going to be the same name, con.txt, but I'm going to save it into the documents library. Save it there. Then you go to documents and you copy it. Then you go back to inetpub and you paste it. And it's going to say copy and replace. Like I said, you cannot save a context file directly in. You have to save it in documents, then copy it, bring it back over and paste it in. Okay, so my context should be good now with all three of those adjustments. I have the new Cerberus in here. I have the new H-port monitor in here. And I have the needed MySQL data, DDL file located here. The other one is, of course, the Mystery Progressive exe file. Okay, very good. So now let's go to the system configuration in Hydra. Let's scroll down here to where it says Progressive Enabled, and it's currently set to an N. So I'm going to have to change that to a Y. If this is set to an N, then the new Cerberus will not try to start Mystery Progressive. If it's set to a Y, Mystery Progressive will be started by Cerberus, along with the H-port monitors. Okay, so I'll come down here and do an update. Okay, that's the item that I actually need to get it started. Now, before we do anything else, we're going to go over here to this new tab that's called Progressive. Now, if you don't have this tab, then you have an old operating system that needs to be upgraded. But if you have the tab, the first one is General Config. And by default, there are two systems equipped, but we're only using system one. So we're going to edit this. And you see in here, there are various options and things. Progressive. Game config, this is where you actually, again, there are 3 games in here by default, but we're only using one, the very first one. We have machine config, which is where you actually add in your machines that you want to add to be contributing Event reports, don't have to worry about. Okay, so that's basically where we're at. Now, one thing I want you to notice, all of a sudden, I have a third application running that wasn't running before, and it is the mystery progressive. And I also have a green ball in the upper left-hand corner of my mystery progressive screen. Okay, I'm going to situate the camera here where you can see, kind of see both screens at once. The media controller progressive screen and the Hydra screen. So when we make some changes, we'll be able to see what happens. So first of all, we're going to go into the general config. And we're going to set up our mystery progressive. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to name it. So you can name it whatever you want. Mystery progressive would probably be a good name. Number of levels is 3. There is no other option. That's the only option is 3. The currency symbol. Currently, I have a US dollar sign in there. I'm going to change this to RD, which would be Dominican Republic. Okay, so I'm going to change that to RD. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to hit submit. Now, if you look at the mystery progressive, you'll see that the currency symbol has dynamically changed to RD. I'm going to go in and change this again. I'm going to put just a regular dollar sign. And I'm going to hit submit. You see it dynamically changed to a dollar sign. That's how that works. Okay, the box under that is the first delimiter symbol. Okay, on my mystery progressive sign, the first delimiter, which is what divides cents and dollars, is in position number 2, and it's a period. There's only 2 options for a delimiter. A delimiter is the thing that divides the numbers up. So at position 2, I have a delimiter of a period. Some countries have the delimiter at position 3. Some countries have the delimiter at position 2. Really, 2 and 3 are the only ones I've ever seen. This is kind of a US model, so its delimiter is going to be a period at position 2. The second delimiter, in the US at least, is a comma at the 1,000 mark, or position 5. And then the third delimiter is also a comma at the 1 million mark, which is position 8. So you see I have, in these 3 boxes, I have a period, comma, comma, and then the locations are 2, 5, and 8, which is the digit position, 2, 5, and 8 for the delimiters. And if you see on the sign, I don't have anything over 100, so you only see one delimiter, that's the period, but you'll see some commas when we make bigger numbers. Let's go down a little bit further. These are the actual names of the 3 progressive levels. So right now I have Grande, Mediano, and Pequeño, which is Spanish, but you can put whatever you want in there. Big, medium, small, mini, medium, grand, whatever names you want you can put in there. So when you change these, I'm going to put big in here on capital letters. You hit update, or submit, sorry. And as soon as you do that, you'll see the change comes through on the sign. I'm going to leave it at big for right now. Big, mediano, and pequeño. Now, the reason you see these funny letters here in pequeño is because those are coded letters that produce the Enye sign. Okay, so win type, you want to leave that at a 1. Player sustain, leave that at a 15. Max coin in, leave that at a 1. And drop digits is 2, and we'll get into what that means later. Actually, for right now, we're going to have drop digits at 0. What drop digits means is when you have a currency that is a big number. For example, in the US we use dollars and cents. So, for example, let's say every dollar I bet, I would turn the progressive 1 cent. Okay, that would be the model that I have here. But in some countries, the currencies are big numbers. For example, Costa Rica is 500, $1 is 500 colones. In Colombia, $1 is 4,000 pesos. So if you had a currency that $1 equals 4,000 pesos, or in Costa Rica, 500 colones, the way it's represented is represented with their currency symbol, which is kind of a C, 500, and then a delimiter of point, and then 2 zeros. So you literally have 5 digits that represent $1. Okay, so in that particular case, we might want to use drop digits to not show the cents or after the 500. In other words, the sign would just show 500 and it wouldn't show the 0.00. So we would drop those digits. That's basically what this is for. We're going to leave this at a 0 now. Just want you to know that's what that field is used for. Okay. So we're all good here for now in the general config area. We're going to go to the next one, which is the game config. This gets a little more complicated. Again, we have a default of 3, but we're only using 1. So we're going to edit the first one. So game 1, there, the name, you can put any name you want in there. The mystery type is 1, leave that at a 1. Repeating option is 1, leave that at a 1. Some of these things are for future options, so just leave them for whatever they're at. Okay, so this is a very important one, this active. So we have a few options. We have active, we have reset all, and then we have individual level resets. And I'll explain what that means. With active, then obviously the progressive is going to be running. If it's not active, it's not going to be running. Reset all is that you want the mystery progressive numbers to reset back to their original value. The original value that you started. Example. Let's say my original values were on my sign $10 for the small, $100 for the middle, and $1,000 for the big. And we'll actually show that in examples here in a little while. A reset would take whatever numbers are on the screen and set those numbers back to the original values. Now the reason that there are the capabilities to reset individuals is because, for example, let's say you had a running progressive and you don't want to reset all 3 of them. You only want to reset 1 of them because the people that are playing remember what those numbers were and they don't want to see those things reset as they're getting closer to winning. Okay, the next one down is the mode. So we have 2 modes, normal mode and test mode. Normal mode is the progressive is up and running. If a win is encountered, then that amount will be directly credited to the machine that won. If it's in test mode, even though a machine will win, and it'll show on the screen that it wins, it won't be credited the amount because it's in test mode. So when we first start the system on a new site, we want to run in test mode, and we'll get into some of the features in test mode, but we want to start in test mode. And then when everything is up and running and everything is working good and everything is tested, we switch over to active mode or normal mode. Scan log, just leave that at 100. The banners, there's another area for this. We'll get into that in a little bit. That's the thing that flashes across the bottom, the scrolling messages that go across the bottom of the screen. Then we get into the numbers, the start amounts. Okay, now we're going to talk about how to set up the numbers. So level 1, which is the biggest number, which is the big win, and you have a start amount, you have a minimum win amount, and you have a maximum win amount. So the system will actually draw a random number in between the minimum and the maximum. So you put the start number in, and then this is going to include your cents. So there's no delimiters in this number. You just put all the digits in there. So I have this set up at 10,000, 00, minimum win is 10,100, maximum win is 10,200. Win mode 0, offset minutes 5. Don't worry about that. That's for future. That's for future release. The win mode level duration. The win mode is in seconds, and that is the amount of time that the win screen is shown on the progressive displays and televisions. Some locations like this a lot longer, like 20 or even 30 seconds, so that the people playing have a chance to see that somebody actually won. And so they like that thing to be out there. And it also comes along with the audio. By the way, on a sidetrack, HDMI carries audio. Some of the splitters and cabling don't support the audio portion, and some of them do. That's why in one of the earlier videos I said you had the capability of taking the audio directly out of the motherboard, out of the center plug, the green audio out plug, and you can put that into your sound system. And you have several options on audio. You have the option of having background audio running all the time, or just audio during a win. It's like fireworks and stuff. Okay. So that's what that 10 seconds is. And then level 2, I have it at 1,000. Minimum win 1,100. Maximum win 1,200. Again, this 5, don't worry about. The 0, don't worry about. And it's going to be shown on the screen for 10 seconds. And then the small one I have set for $10. Minimum win is 11. Maximum win is 12. Okay. And it's going to be shown for 10 seconds. Now, these numbers down below are what we call throttles. So before we get into that, I'm going to hit submit, and in order to update the sign, I actually have to kill the program and let Cerberus start it back up again. And you can see down at the bottom here in the tray, I have 2 and now 3 you know what, I should have done a reset. Let me do a reset. I'll go back into configuration, game, edit. I'm going to do a reset all. Submit. Now see, it killed it automatically for me. Okay, if you look at the sign now, you'll see my numbers reset to the original values, 10,000, and you'll see my delimiter comma now at position 5. You'll see the medium at 1,000, and you'll see my delimiter is at the 5 mark, and then you'll see at the bottom my new number is $10. So everything is at the start of that. Okay, so now let's talk about those bottom numbers. There's a feature in this system called throttling. And what that means is if the casino decides that they want to contribute 1% to the Mystery Progressive, then everything after the initial base amount, everything after 10,000, everything after 1,000, everything after $10 is 1%, if that's the number they decide on. Okay, so if they paid a jackpot of $10,100, it's not really 1% because they have to pay the base amount of 10,000 plus the 1%. But maybe the casino doesn't want to pay the base amount and the 1%. Maybe they just want to pay the 1%. Well, it doesn't really make sense. What do you mean? If a person wins 10,100, they got to pay 10,100. Okay, so what the throttles do is you can say at a certain number, when the 10,000 hits a certain number, and in my case, it's 10,100, then whatever the percentage is of contribution drops 50% or 0.5. When it hits 10,150, it drops to 0.1% or 10% of 1%. So what happens is as the numbers get bigger, at certain points that we call throttles, and you have 2 throttles for each level, they slow down. So now the casino is not contributing 1% anymore. After 10,100, the casino is actually only contributing 0.5%. And after 10,150, the casino is actually only contributing 0.1%. And basically what that does is it says, okay, as the numbers get bigger or closer to the win, I want to come off of that 1%. I'm going to contribute a little bit less. So by the time the win occurs, the contributions have made up for the base amount. Now it's a little complicated and a little bit difficult to grasp, but basically that's what that's for. You don't have to use those, but they are available. So on level 2, I have a throttle starting at 1,100 and it drops to 50% or half of 1%. I have another throttle set at 1,150 and it drops to 10% or 0.1. Instead of 1%, it's 0.1. And then at $10, basically the same thing. So I have all 3 levels set up with the exact same throttling, but each one can be set up individually. It's really how you do the math and how you want to handle the throttling, if it's even used. But everybody uses it. Okay, so that's the entire game setup. Okay, so just remember on the game config, Any changes made, you have to kill the program. You bring it up from the tray and you just hit the X and you just let Cerberus restart it. It's not a big deal. I noticed that when I did the reset earlier, reset all earlier, it did it automatically for me. And then when it came back, by the way, it went to active. Okay. Now we're going to go to machine config. Okay. Right here you'll see that in my particular case I have 3 machines. So if I want to add a machine, I have to pick from what's equipped in Hydra. Well, I've only got 3 machines equipped in Hydra, so I only have a choice of the 3. So we'll delete one of mine and we'll add it back in again so we can go through the steps. So we're going to delete GA12. Okay. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to go machine config and I'm going to add a machine. Well, let's see, machine ID, I'm going to add GA12. Okay, so the group ID is 1. Now, the theory here is that you can have more than one game running. In other words, you could have a group of machines running on one mystery progressive and another group of machines running on another mystery progressive. But my experience has been that you want all machines running on the same mystery progressive. So we're going to leave that at group 1. Everything's group 1. Now, level 1 rate, level 2 rate, and level 3 rate. That is how much do I want to contribute to each of these levels. Now, I've decided, in my particular case, that I want to give 1% to the mystery progressive. So I have to divide that 1% up into the 3 levels. So I'm going to say I'm going to give level 1 0.2. I'm going to give level 2 0.3, and I'm going to give level 3 0.5. Okay, so if you add those up, 0.2 plus 0.3 plus 0.5, that equals 1%. Active is a 0. I'm going to leave it at a 0 for right now. Actually, you know what, I'm going to make it a 1, which means that machine is going to be actively contributing. Game ID, leave that at 1. Accounting units, for now, leave that at 1. Max difference, for now, leave that at 5,000, and we'll get into how to adjust those out later. Payout multiplier, leave that at a 1, and test mode is a 0. Okay. So if I have it in test mode, then it contributes to the amount, but if it wins, it doesn't get paid. So you can do that on an individual machine basis. So in other words, you already have machines in service working, but you're adding new machines. You might want to leave the new machines at 0 until they're tested that they're contributing properly. And that's the key here. So I'm going to hit submit. Now, and it tells you here in red, it doesn't, this change doesn't take effect until we restart the program. So we just pull it up, we hit the X, we let Cerberus restart it, and we're done. So now it's in effect. Okay, so now let's take a look at our machine again. And you see now we have some new fields over here on the right. So what this is going to do is this is going to give us the latest meter value that's read, the prior meter value, the meter difference, the difference with the accounting units applied, the difference with the max difference applied, the odometer movement, meter read time and date, and the true odometer movement based on some of the numbers that we have in here. Well, everything's zeroed out right now because my machine G12 is not connected on Hydra. So let's actually connect the machine and let's see how these numbers work out.